Hey everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. Joining us today is somebody I've known for a long, long time, but oddly enough, out of everybody I've ever interviewed, I never got to interview this man, Milos Sarcev. So here we are today. Thank you, Milos, for joining us. I appreciate it very much.
Ron, I know you for about 15, 20 years maybe, and this is a first interview.
Yeah.
Actually, I was surprised. I've seen on it was Facebook and Instagram. You had my picture in your diet and training diary.
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to post it, but I didn't ask you for permission, so I didn't.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I had that picture I would stare at probably before every workout for a good 3 or 4 years. That was the ideal physique to me. You know.
Way to go. Is it still?
Well, oh, it's still. You're still one of my all-time favorite physiques, but that training journal is it's collecting dust with a few others in my.
Oh, that's what I wanted to hear. All-time favorite physique. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. You know. Yeah, for those who don't know, you need to. We'll have pictures with this, but you need to Google and look on YouTube and look at Milos in his prime. We talk about classic physiques, and people talk about people like Flex Wheeler and Lee Labrada, Frank Zane. Milos Sarcev definitely belongs in that category. Milos had that classic shape with the wide shoulders, the small waist, the flaring quads. Posing presentation was top notch. Posing routines were mesmerizing. You know, I don't think you get enough credit. You know, you're one of those guys that people seem to forget about when they have these discussions. For whatever reason.
I competed at the toughest era in 90s. You know, there was Dorian and Nasser and Kevin, Sean, Flex, Chris, Lee Priest. I mean, Paul Dillette. List goes on. So, but interestingly, I was like signing up for a 24-hour fitness yesterday, and nobody even knew about me.
Wow.
Okay, and they're like, bodybuilders training there. They asked me if I should maybe consider, signing up for a personal training session. I said, that shouldn't be really necessary.
Oh man, well, because a lot of the guys, the young kids now, they don't really have a lot of knowledge about the people. To them, the 90s was a very long time ago. So, I want to start out with just a tiny bit of history. So you were born in what is now Serbia. Back then it was Yugoslavia, correct?
Exactly. I was born in Yugoslavia. I represented Yugoslavia all my professional career, and then it switched to Serbia. So unfortunately, I didn't really compete for Serbia, but I was proudly representing my country all this time, yes. Even though I became American citizen back in 95, I kept my dual citizenship and competed for Yugoslavia.
So, a lot of people don't know also, you're known as the Mind because you were pioneered a lot of different training and nutrition techniques. But people don't always know that you come from a very, very strong intellectual base. Both of your parents and your only sister, they're all medical doctors. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, let me put it this way. I didn't put that moniker Mind. I actually first time read it in the Flex magazine. I guess editorial of Flex, Peter McGough and other guys there, they realize every time they do the interview or every time they hear me talk, in public, I had like Mind on my own, and I was thinking outside the box, and I was, saying some new things that there was not like conventional method of training, supplementation, contest prep, and so on. But I would lie to you if I would say that I don't enjoy my nickname.
Could be worse.
I'm honored with that.
So you played many, many different sports growing up over there. How did all that lead into becoming a bodybuilder?
Well, in Europe, I guess when you're a kid and when you're a boy, first thing you learn to walk, and as soon as you learn to walk, they throw the soccer ball in front of you. Yeah. So you're walking with a soccer ball. So soccer was number one sport, of course, and then basketball. My country, Yugoslavia, now Serbia. We were 3-time world champions, 2 times Olympic gold medalists. Like, we are a very, very talented nation. But this is all group sport, and I was playing soccer, and then when I was 17, I actually made a basketball team. As Phil Heath was saying at his Olympia speech, he just didn't have a height, and I guess it was not God's will to play basketball. I think I was actually a basketball player, but I just I was a little bit too heavy and too short. Well, also my father, as a psychiatrist, always believed in extreme discipline, so he wanted me to experience martial arts. So first I signed up as a karate guy, like for a couple of years when I was like 6 years old, and then as I realized that karate was not Olympic sport, judo was, I switched to judo, and we had a Olympic medalist back in 1980, Slavko Badov, Serbian Yugoslavian champion, So I actually started training judo, hoping I'm going to actually represent my country in judo. But, in judo, you start doing some strength training, and then, I start lifting weights, and next thing you get the magazines and see Arnold and Frank and Sergio Nobre and all these guys, and immediately I knew that was my calling. Speaking of that, I mean, you were mentioning that the youngsters nowadays don't follow bodybuilding, so they don't know who we are.
Right.
I mean, when we started, exactly from the very beginning, from Eugene Sandow, from Steve Reeves. I mean, you can never forget any of those guys.
Right.
So of course, 70s and Arnold and Sergio and Serge and Franco Colombo, Lou Ferrino. We know all of them. So I'm actually quite surprised that somebody is calling themselves a bodybuilding fan and they don't know guys from 90s.
Yeah. It's funny. Some of them will say, well, I've been following bodybuilding since like Big Ramy came on the scene. I'm like, really? That was like 5 minutes ago to me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. What was it, like 5 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. No, 4 years ago when he won the New York Pro. So
yeah, but he was Olympia amateur champion. He was very good back then too.
So, turning pro was much more difficult back when you did it, late 80s. There wasn't that many opportunities, especially for Europeans. How did you get your pro card?
Well, let me talk to you openly about it. This is how it goes. Back in the 80s, if you were national level champion and your IBB federation recommends you to the pro division and you are good enough, then they would allow you. Let's look at Dorian Yates. Dorian Yates didn't win the IBB World Championship.
Right.
He won British Championship, one of the strongest national championship out there. I mean, English guys, British guys are just phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
I only won a Serbian championship, but I already moved here to America. And what happened was, I'll tell you, at the USA, I believe it was 88 or 89, and I can't really remember. I approached Wayne DeMiglia. I knew that he was one responsible, and I introduced myself, and I showed him a bunch of photos. So as he saw my photos, he took it, walked to the Jim Mannion, they talked, he came back to me and he says, okay, have your federation contact us. And this is how I got the pro card.
Wow, okay.
Maybe I shouldn't say that publicly, but that's exactly what happened, guys.
So I believe you did you compete in some amateur shows out in California before you were pro?
Yeah, I did. Put it this way, I was competing left and right. I came here 87, and then whatever contest was, I actually even forgot the name. There was in Anaheim something. It was
you won the Orange County, I believe.
No, I didn't win. I was second. Yeah, actually, I lost by a point. I know there was quite good guys at that time. 1989, I got second. It was like 3 points to 2. I lost by 1 point from a guy from Florida. I never really seen him afterwards. There was one competitor, I forgot now his name, please forgive me, but a tremendous physique, crazy V-taper. Shit.
No, people don't realize, because, we both lived in Southern California in the 90s, and there were people from all over the world that would come out to live there, and they would do those quote-unquote local shows. So the local shows out there were not like your local shows out in other parts of the country. They were stacked.
It was very tough, let me tell you. And then I competed at the California State Championship where Flex won. I was heavyweight. I think I placed 4th. Yeah. But then I was competing every weekend. So following weekend was Coastal USA Championship in Atlanta, Georgia. And previous year, that was 89. So because previous year, John DeFendis won that. And John DeFendis won USA later. Right. So I decided, okay, I've never been on the East Coast, let me go there. So I went there. And actually a friend of mine paid for my flight and hotel. And because I was using his credit card, right? Yeah. I was checked in a hotel under his name. So of course I didn't go there really to win. I just went there to gain experience. Yeah. And what happened was actually I was winning after prejudging heavyweight division. And I guess some people from media, asked me where I'm staying, and I told them hotel, and then they went to hotel, and they just couldn't find me because I was in the different name. So anyway, I came back for a final show. I won overall, and that's when I finally had an interview. Then following weekend, I went to Vegas actually just to have fun, and then I realized there was a USA qualifier, nationals qualifier at Vegas.
Yeah.
So I decided to enter also on a 2-day notice. I was a heavyweight, and there was only one other guy. And also, I apologize, I don't know your name, but he was a phenomenal competitor.
Yeah.
So it was, pretty much, if I lose to the guy, I'm going to be dead last. But I did win that, and overall, Las Vegas NPC, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And then they sponsored me for nationals. So let me get that. 89, I went to North Carolina. I mean, it was Raleigh to compete in nationals. Yeah, I'm not a citizen or resident or nothing. So of course I showed up there. They asked me for the documents. I didn't have it, so I couldn't compete.
Yeah.
So Bob. No, it wasn't Bob. It was Eddie Robinson won that show. Yeah.
Yeah, there were been right around that time. I remember there were other people like Laura Cravell. She was trying to compete in the nationals with the USA, and she was still a Guyana citizen. When Gary Stridham turned pro by winning, I think it was the '86 nationals, he had only gotten his citizenship like a week before. So it was tough.
I actually had to kiss the stage goodbye there. I went there, I was backstage pumping up, and they approached me. It's like, okay, are you an American citizen? I could have to speak English. Yes. No, I didn't. I was, and I didn't compete there.
Oh, that's terrible.
But you see, I did count. I did 38 amateur shows and 72 professional. So I'm at 110.
Wow.
But I'm really bummed because, you see, there was a bunch of things that happened. 2000, I had qualified for Olympia.
Yeah.
Then I had a simple accident. And then IBB didn't give me medical clearance to compete at the 2000 Olympian European Tour. Then after this, really, 2006, I was preparing all these guys, Hidetada, Silvio, Joel Stubbs, Chris, many guys.
Yeah.
And training with them, right, accidentally, I started getting in shape. So what happened, I don't know if you are familiar with the picture of me and Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler won that year Olympia. He beat Ronnie.
Yeah.
So there was a picture of me and him, and then when I just showed my abs.
Yeah.
And at least that's out there, so people would know that I was actually in a contest shape. I was not dieting for the show. I was not really preparing, but things were going so well because I trained with those guys twice a day, giant sets, brutal training.
Yeah.
I accidentally would start getting in shape, and I was considering to pull 1980 Arnold gig. But what they did, remember, he went there as a CBS commentator and pulled the number. So everything worked well, but the first contest was Austria, and I had there, Dennis James, and there was Lee Powell. There was many guys.
Yeah.
Hidetada. So at that day, I couldn't really do it. So right after the show, there was another bummer because you are in Austria, and they have that apple strudel with vanilla sauce, right?
Yeah.
So that banquet, I was going to have a couple of them, but I ended up having 8.
Strudel.
Like, 8 strudels, fully loaded. Just like, no way I can compete the next day. But you did little, pre-contest things of miracle nature, and I woke up in a contest shape, dry as a bone, like, oh man, I'm competing. So I got to Romania with the first flight, and there was like 2 different flights going. Check on heat, everything was good, and I started shaving because I was really, pressed with time. I didn't have enough time, so I didn't do it in California. I didn't do it in Austria, and I started shaving, and I did my legs, I did my front, and phone rang, and it was Jay Cutler. Right? I don't know if you know the story.
No.
Yeah, I said it a couple of times. So Jay Cutler said, Milos, can you do me a favor? I said, of course, Jay. Whatever you need. What is it? It's okay to put the Pro-10. Oh, there was Gentana. I don't know. Just to put 10. So, okay. So he walked in my room, big as a door, with this little sponge like really this size.
Yeah.
And needless to say, 2 hours later, I'm still doing it. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm not going to make it. And fortunately, Hide came with, another Japanese friend. And, the Japanese are born with cameras attached to their hands. So, at least they took a picture. So I have a proof. Really, I was in contest shape. I do believe that day that I could have placed 3rd because the lineup was like this. That I think with the judges, Pavel Philaborn and those other European judges that like symmetry, proportion, and condition, I could possibly squeeze on the third, but I just decided not to compete. Planning, I'm going to compete 2007 Ironman, and Ironman, in my opinion, had the best possible lights, and with the best possible lights, my carb loading manipulation, does wonders. I mean, if you actually look at 2007, Hida, Silvio, Joel, I mean, they all look phenomenal, and that sure. And really, those kind of lights accentuate the physiques. When you are really full and ready, you look spectacular.
Well, I think to let people understand why, it's because the Ironman Pro was lit by Mike Neveu, who was the co-owner and chief photographer. And Mike was just a master at lighting. You've shot in his studio before, just to light and shadow. And he was able to light that stage like his studio. So you guys looked on that stage just like you would look on the magazine cover. It was incredible to see.
By far, I would say by far the best lighting I've ever seen. But the British Grand Prix also had a I don't know if Chris Land was possibly involved in this stage lighting, but it was phenomenal. If you see that 99 lineup with Ronnie and Flex and Kevin, Dexter, myself, Nasser, Marcus, I mean, it was very comparable. Physique, jumps at your face, in your eyes, with this kind of lighting.
So, I want to talk about the fact that you did so many shows. You did 72 shows, and I didn't see you in all of them, obviously, but I know you were very consistent with your condition. You were never off. So we have so many guys now that they'll do one show a year, two, maybe three if they're all close together. But in general, they're afraid of competing too often because they don't think they can peak for it. Did you not worry about that? Did you not think that was impossible?
No, actually, even look at all my guys that start preparing, they start competing in multiple shows. Come on. Let's be honest, let's not do this bullshit like, okay, let's lie to ourselves, say what we need to say. Let's hear what you really need to hear. You're a professional bodybuilder. You always want to be, ideally, we would like to be in a contest shape year round. I was pretty much for, 13 years on a, 4 to 6 weeks notice I can jump in any show. You need to be a bodybuilder, not an off-season waterlog that, you have to check your blood pressure and maybe, pop some diuretics to bring it down.
Yeah.
I mean, if you gain 30, 40, 50, 60 or plus pounds, we say, how healthy would that be? So, what I was always doing, I was competing. Starting 91, I did every pro show that was organized. 92, I continued. And, there was many years that I did every single one show. 99 was actually my last one, and I'm going to tell you, I really highly regret it. Let me put it this way. Frank Zane was my idol.
Yeah.
Lee Haney is probably the biggest gentleman our sport ever had. I mean, I love the guy. I would take my hat off to him. He was so influential. And those couple of guys, actually did tell me, like, Milos, don't compete as often. Give your body a break. You need to rest and so on. And then 99, after a whole decade of really pushing it, I decided, okay, let me do this. Let me promise that I'm not going to step my foot in the gym for a couple of months, and then after this break, then I'm going to slowly go back. So I did, and those 2 months became 4, and 4 months became 6, and I could never really, get that motivation back. I highly regret doing this, and then injuries start to happen. Like when I was constant and continuous training. I'm sure because you keep the log. I was doing from 1987 to 1999, a diary, every page handwritten. There was no computers. By the end of the day, calculating protein, carbs, fat, amount of calories, and then putting my training and also pharmacology, everything I was taking. So you have a reference. And then every time I was trying to improve and make a little difference. But after this 99, I stopped that, and I just lost that drive, and I highly regret. I think if I didn't do that, I would probably by far exceed amount of competitions that now Dexter has. Dexter surpassed me in IBB Pro shows. I was in Australia, I think 2015, when he was like, with a big smile, I passed you. He was okay. So Dexter is a super inspirational, and I remember back in the day when he started, his pro debut was 99 Iron Classic. Yeah, that's actually the only contest I beat him. and probably beat him because he was, doing a pro debut. He was phenomenal even back then.
Yeah.
But he started competing in all the shows, and there was him, Chris Cormier, and a few other guys saying we're going to do Milos thing. And what was Milos thing? Competing in all the shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Let's face it. If you're in a contest shape, like right now, guys are doing the Olympian, they're going to do maybe a Classic, Prague, whatever else.
Yeah.
You're in a contest shape. Your metabolism is going. Your body is primed. You're at a low level of body fat, and right now, your body would highly accept all the calories, good calories, providing you put protein and carbohydrates. You increase it slowly. You can blow up in just pure muscle mass. That rebound effect. If you're not eating shitty food and loading up on fats, but you're on super high carbs, super low fat with high protein.
Yeah.
About a month after the show, if you do things right, you can gain 20, 30, 40 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, I did this all the time. I did with many other guys, and they were going to say, you cannot gain 40 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
Hello, your body is 60, 70% water. So yeah, 60, 70% is going to be water. But if you gain 40 pounds and you then don't put the ounce of body fat, what do you call it?
Yeah.
That's called improvement, yes. So I was doing this all the time, and if you follow, like back in 91, 92, I didn't really have enough muscle mass, I don't think, to be considered a top pro bodybuilder. But surprisingly, in my pro debut, I qualified for Olympia. I was top 3 at San Jose, and for 10 consecutive years, in the 90s, hottest era of bodybuilding, I managed to qualify each time. And if you know, back then, there was you need to be top 3 in any pro show,
Yeah.
top 5 Ironman Classic or Night of the Champions, or top 10 at Olympia. So I didn't manage to qualify 10 consecutive years in this kind of lineup.
And now you had so many top 3 finishes, top 5 finishes. You had a lot of second places. Out of all those second place finishes,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
what's the one that you thought you should have won? Pick one.
Well, I'm going to tell you this also. I tell this to my guys. When I competed, really, I didn't believe I could win. And yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit it, because right now when I tell my guys, I always tell them, you have to believe you can win. And I'm going to tell you this. I didn't believe I'm going to win any contest until my 48 show. There was Canada Pro Cup, which I actually announced, and it was printed in a magazine, Flex magazine. I'm going there to win. And I won. Of course, Chris Cormier was there, Mike Matarazzo, and many other guys, top guys. But I honestly believed, should I say this? Okay, there was going to be majority of Canadian judges, not really American.
Yep.
So I would have more chances. Following after I won that, and Mike was second, and Chris was third, going into the Night of Champions, there was already right away that doubt. They're not going to let me win, and I played second. Yeah. So it is one of those things. I remember when I discussed with Sean Ray many times. He was like, "Oh man, you never beat me," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Sean, you're American, right? We compete at Olympia, where majority of judges are American. Would you want to bet your life that if you go to Yugoslavia and compete in front of the majority of Yugoslavian judges, you will beat me?" Yeah. I mean, let's face it. I'm not going to say anything about being biased and all that stuff, but I still think if it's International Federation of Bodybuilders and it's an international show, it should be a little bit more fairly picked judges from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I don't know if audience actually knows. Back in my days, you would have 13 judges, 9, 11, or 13. That if it's 13, 4 highs and 4 low scores are erased, and then middle 5 would be counted on.
Wow.
You didn't know that? Yeah,
no, I didn't know that.
That's very, very fair. Very fair. Back in early 90s, there was only 9 judges, so 2 highs, 2 lows are erased, and then mid 5 are counted on. So, for example, if you are really favoring one guy that should be dead last, and you put him first, it's not going to be even considered. It's going to be scratched. So at that way, I think it's very, very fair. But I do think that it makes huge difference. And I've seen some American guys were complaining of Rami winning in Kuwait.
Yeah.
And hello, is this surprising? I mean, come on. So I was maybe not as fortunate, to compete mostly. There was only one Olympia back in '92 in Helsinki in Europe, but everything else in US.
Right, right. And so, getting back to when you talk about the synthol, I want you to tell the story because there's so many people using site enhancement oil now, and they think it's perfectly harmless. But you almost lost your life 17 years ago.
Yes.
Can you
Yes,
tell
I
people
mean,
what happened?
I don't mind at all talking about it, even though, as you guys know, on the bulletin boards, forums, on Facebook, social media, they're ripping me apart. I mean, even somebody was like, "Oh, you're such a hypocrite, you use it." The biggest regret of my career is, Synthol. I said this in the Flex magazine interview back in the day. You know how it goes. You are involved in a bodybuilding. You compete, and then you hear experts are telling you, like, "Whoa, with the bigger arms, you can be Mr. Olympia, right?"
Yeah.
And then you find out that most of your competition is doing it. Really, one top. I'm not going to say the name. Out of respect, a guy was using it, and somebody brought it for him, but he couldn't find them, and gave it to me to give it to him, like 12 bottles, and say, like,
Wow.
"What is it?" And I said, "Synthol." So, Synthol what? I mean, do you eat, drink? You do this. So he explained me, and some other Olympia winner was using it. So he said, "Okay, good enough for me. Let me try it." And that was after '97. So '98, I started using it a little bit. And then, at that time, there was like different sources of the same stuff, but it was not safe stuff. It was not pharmaceutical grade. It was, underground lab mixed, God knows what.
Right.
That story. I mean, we bodybuilders are, rightfully called meatheads sometimes because serve me the story that sounds good, and I'm going to just fall for it.
Yeah.
So this is like, binding to your muscle fibers, like volumizing and all this bullshit. It was none of that. So '98 Olympia, somebody else showed up at the Olympia conference with about 80-inch arms. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was, and it didn't actually look that bad. So the guy that was providing with him, I used that one. And unfortunately, God knows what was in it. Probably also silicone, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you start really changing my anatomy, like exactly what the short head, long head, biceps, medial head is supposed to look like, and it was changing. So as that's changing, you're trying to correct it, but more you try to correct, you're making it worse. First in '99 already, I started, destroying my arms, and then I was trying to correct it, which was not good. But as substance, what it is, nobody really knows to this day. Okay, and they would say it's a site enhancement, and it's great, and it's painless, and it's safest. Well, what had happened is, as it was injected, it wasn't intramuscular, but IV accidentally. Because many times when you inject needle stops wherever, and you pull it a little bit, and it can end up in your blood vessel. It went straight to my heart, and I get the congestive heart failure. But I have never been struck by lightning, but if I would imagine what it feels like, that was it. I mean, it was extreme chest pain, like 10 elephants would step on my chest at once. I could not breathe. It was like, it's called ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. I mean, my vital signs were gone when paramedics came and driving me to the hospital. You can hear them communicating, and I don't think he's going to make it. And then when you hear all that stuff, you start panicking. Yeah, but it was really critical condition. As you mentioned, my parents and sister are medical doctors.
Right.
They informed they have less than 24 hours to see me alive. And then when you put all this in perspective, like, oh, God damn. So I went publicly many times on forums, and I'm going to say this right now here in the interview. I mean, really, don't go for the shortcuts. It's selling your soul to a devil, and devil is going to come and claim it. I guarantee you 100%. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So I think for the beauty of the sport, this kind of things should be eliminated once and forever. And it is typical cheating. I mean, I'm ashamed. Yeah, like I had that aesthetically pleasing, symmetrical, physique, and I ruined it because of it. I was looking for shortcuts, and going with everybody else is going. I was always a leader, not a follower, but at that instance, I followed the lead, and I regret it. So if you're using a Synthol, just ask yourself, like, what is really going to do, and what kind of long-term effects? Because I'm going to tell you, my arms blew up to like 22 and a half inches. Like, wow, yay! But yeah, yeah. Even though some would call them 17-inch pythons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, quality was not there, and then the actual tissue became fibrotic and necrotic, and it's going to happen to you. And when that happens, slowly you're going to start atrophying, and you're going to lose what you actually had before. So this is honest to God truth. If you want to believe it with me, you're better off. But think twice before you do it.
Okay. So the other thing that a lot of people, pretty much almost everybody it seems now, is using insulin, and that's something that can kill you like immediately if you screw up. And I've heard guys like Dorian talk about how they feel that it ruined the condition in the sport. We have big, full muscles now. The guys are so much bigger and fuller, but the detail is gone. And also we have cases where people are having serious medical problems. I mean, I'm sure there's been deaths that we don't know about because they weren't big name people. Do you believe insulin has a place in the sport if used correctly?
Well, I'm probably guilty of bringing the insulin to the IBB, and I'm going to tell you that I read a lot and I researched a lot, and I've seen some Eastern German DDR, right, programs back in Olympic Games and all that stuff. Not bodybuilding, physique enhancement. This is performance enhancement. I've seen, among other things, there was L-Dopa, GH, insulin. Insulin just instantly got my attention. It's like, why insulin, right? So when I started researching and asking a lot of doctors, because my parents were connected with all the other doctors, how they all hang together. So every time when somebody would come to my house, would pick their brain. There was endocrinologists, sports medicine doctors, and I asked. So I learned very fast. Of course, insulin is the strongest anabolic hormone. It's a storage hormone, and it inserts everything in the tissues. And I was like, wow, this makes sense. Then I competed with Tim Belknap, 91 in San Jose Pro. And Tim Belknap was also competing in Serbia, Yugoslavia back in the day, winning the NABA, BABA, whatever it was, federation at the time, World Championship. And I see him backstage using insulin, and I see him about 45 minutes later looking completely different. So for me, I said, okay, let me find out how you use this. Nobody could really give me exact info on how you do it, because you see, in pharmacology, this is how it is. If you're going to use any medicament, you need to know this pharmacokinetic, pharmacodynamic data, onset, peak, duration, elimination, clearance, all that stuff. So back in the day, there was not fast acting. Fastest acting was Humulin R, which was in your body for 8 hours, and then you have L, R, U, N, all kinds of stuff. So this was the one that made the most sense. So I started experimenting, and I just said, okay, if you use something like this, you have to create an environment that your body is accustomed to, which means your endogenous insulin is only released when you have a hyperglycemia caused by food that you're eating, right? So, but you don't know how much carbs or food would elevate how much insulin, right? So I started experimenting because nobody could tell me. I use a certain amount of insulin, time it, and then it's an amount of carbs, insufficient, and now we're going hypoglycemia like probably about 10 times until I figure out the amounts needed. Yeah, but as you asked me, and you say that Dorian said that, and many other people, that insulin is, yes and no. Yes, because wrong usage of insulin absolutely can. Correct usage of insulin, if you're really smart and you understand why you're using it, how you time it, then it cannot. I even hear recently, like many people like Lantus, because Lantus, long-acting insulin, is popular among diabetics. Medical doctors are giving them and all that stuff, but Lantus means you have a 24 hours of a slow-acting insulin is going to be putting into the tissues everything you have available. So if you do have a triglycerides lingering around, they're going to be inserted in fat tissue or even in muscular tissue, intramuscular triglycerides, right? So using an insulin, also I heard some gurus would tell you, wake up in the morning, shoot it, and say, why on earth would you use insulin at any other time except right before training and immediately after training?
Yeah.
Instead of being a worst enemy, it becomes your best friend. If you understand my theory of hyperemia advantage system, increased blood flow to the muscle only happens when we train, right?
Yeah.
So 24 hours a day, you have 5-6 liters of blood lingering around, circulating, going in whatever tissues is needed. You're inactive, only 10-12% is in your muscle tissue.
Yep.
When you train, it goes up to 60-65% of this blood going into exact muscle fibers, muscle cells of the muscle that you're training. So you have all this blood going through, right?
Yeah.
Every muscle contraction opens up the cells, they're ready for uptake. So if you stimulate as many muscle fibers of surrounding area, and specifically for that muscle groups, this is why I do those giant sets to hit the muscle from different angle and different tempo, grip, stance, whatever variable you can include.
Yeah.
You're shoving all these nutrients straight into exact muscle fibers in the muscle cells of muscle you're training. If you have an insulin, that is 1,000,000% going to happen instantly, because insulin is taking everything out of the blood and inserting into the tissues and cells, and only cells available at that time are muscle cells. So yeah, if you take insulin before the workout and you have only good nutrients, I mean anabolic, anti-catabolic, fat burning nutrients, right? Nothing that can potentially harm your condition, like triglycerides, for example, right?
Yeah.
Then you only have a positive results. What I've seen, people, they don't really care about this, so instead of apple pie filling, they take apple pies completely, and they're having way too much fat. They're the one that create this high amounts of intramuscular triglycerides. Then you have a extension of the abdomen. That's what do you call it, bubble gut bonanza, whatever it's being popular nowadays.
Yeah.
Couple some other things, but insulin, I guarantee you, will not make you less conditioned, because let's face it, Chad Nichols and myself, after discussing this back in 95, 96, used with any of my athletes, and he used with any of his athletes, including Ronnie Coleman, 98 Olympia, best condition of his life probably.
Yeah.
Would you have a single complaint about that conditioning?
No. Nope.
Or shortly after, Flex Wheeler and many other guys that Chad was using. So it's not insulin that is guilty of. People like to point the fingers, but there is absolutely correct usage of insulin is not going to ruin your condition. I guarantee you that. I competed in insulin since '93 until my very last show. I wouldn't step on the stage without it.
Wow. So another thing I think you should get credit for is, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to take credit for bringing insulin to the sport, but you definitely were the first one that I can recall that had intra-workout nutrition as a mandatory part of the program, taking in the BCAAs, the glucose.
No, BCAAs are the only thing that I have to say that was allowed, that was around for many years before, right? The BCAAs were used as far as probably 70s and then early 80s and so on, but the whole concept of using BCAAs for intra-workout training is idiotic, if you ask me. And I said this publicly. I actually even did some things with the Ajinomoto, the best amino acids out there, fermented, pharmaceutical grade, the best of the best. AginoPure, if you see the label AginoPure, buy it. Whoever is using it, it's the best amino acids. But they didn't particularly like what I had to say about BCAAs. So how BCAAs marketed? Isoleucine, leucine, valine, 3 out of 8 essential aminos, right?
Yeah.
Taken during workout, that's going to spare the muscle glycogen.
Right.
Okay. And people just say that. I say, okay, now slap yourself a few times and think about what you just said. Okay? You're going to spare muscle glycogen. What is muscle glycogen? Glucose binded with water, right? So you're going to spare your cheap glucose available everywhere that you can replenish, you can deliver during your training, whatever. You're going to spare that cheap, good tasting glucose. It's super expensive essential amino acids that taste like shit, right? During the training, right? Because you want to spare, you want to save that muscle glycogen. You want those amino acids to be converted by gluconeogenesis process into the glucose and be burned as a fuel, equivalent to shitload of cash being thrown into fire to heat your house. BCAAs are absolutely super important. Leucine for mTOR pathway for hypertrophy. Any which way you look, most important amino acids, right? You're gonna burn them as a fuel. So you're consciously allowing your body to convert, building nutrients into the energy that is going to burn in the fuel. So I'm not going to say I brought BCAAs into the intra, but I realized what else you need. So everything that was making sense, as I said, hyperemia, increased blood flow, bring all this blood into the exact muscle that you're training. You're applying this, resistance overload, the just weight resistance training of any kind would open up the cells and they are ready for uptake if they're pre-digested hydrolyzed nutrients. So all the creatine, glutamine, beta-alanine, citrulline, you name it, L-carnitine, essential amino acids, glucose, ATP, everything is going to be pushed in. Guarantee. In the presence of insulin, everything is going to be pushed in. So it's not just BCAAs, because there are 3 out of 8 essential, or potentially 9 if you consider histidine also. Some people do, but it's conditionally. So essential amino acids need to be there. When you're synthesizing the protein, right, you have all these pairs of aminos. If some are missing, you stop the process. It's going to be delayed. It's not going to happen. So for that reason, I was always saying essential amino acids are by far most important supplements you can take. You saturate, your blood with essential aminos. I mean, for granted, we were talking about before, high protein intake is necessary, right? But then vegetarians, as they have incomplete, not sufficient amount of essential amino acids, incomplete protein, inferior to animal sources, complete. The equation is essential amino acids. You eat all your protein foods in chicken, turkey, fish, eggs, milk, protein powders. You are taking not for protein content, but for essential amino acid content on that protein. Because non-essential amino acids, body can manufacture like this. So really, I mean, even now my athletes are telling me, should I take this protein, or should I drink protein, eat protein, or have amino acids? I would always tell them, amino acids are by far more superior, but of course you have to have some solid food. So if nothing else, add some essential amino acids with each meal, or have them in between meals. But when you're talking, I was pioneer of intra-workout nutrition. I absolutely am. I'm not saying this arrogantly but confidently, because nobody else had this idea back in the day, and that idea, actually came from my father, Dr. Science of Neuropsychiatry, who was actually ridiculing me about following exercise physiology steps that, you eat like hour and a half before training, then you kill yourself during a training, catabolize the tissues, right? Create microtears of the muscle fibers, deplete the glycogen storage, all that stuff, and then you replenish.
Yeah.
So he told me, does it make sense to you? He was saying, because I was planning to go to America, if we now have a flight from Belgrade going to LAX with no passengers. Like, what's the point of flying? I said, okay, what are you saying? I said, why would you send your blood through your hard-working muscle with all these muscle contractions? They're ready to uptake all this stuff during a training, without supplying all these nutrients, for the training. And you see, when you're a teenager, you kind of don't want to listen to your father, even if he's the most brilliant guy. So initially it has resistance, but then it's like, God damn, this makes like way too much sense for me to pass. And this is how I started using it, and results were instant. Yeah.
So we talked about the guts a couple of minutes ago. People speculate it's GH, it's insulin, it's both. Why do you think we have so many big guts now? What is to blame?
Well, GH for sure does. I mean, for sure it does. The growth hormone enlarges all the organs as well.
Yeah.
There are many other things, but yes, I think also people are eating a ridiculous amount of food at once, like really, environmentally, whatever is happening nowadays. I think that the digestion is way affected and not as efficient as before. So you have really, I mean, I've seen like hundreds of guys that after the meal they can't even breathe. You know, so what? Yeah, really. Why do you stuff yourself, you know, to that point? I mean, you're miserable. You know, then that you can really direct it. I was splitting the meals in half, and really I went into the extent of if you have a meal every 3 hours, I would make you cut your meals and have a half every hour and a half, which was ridiculous. But I have a couple of guys, even here, Californian guys. I've seen a gentleman the other day, Everett Lecker. You know, he was so persistent. You know, with this, you elevate your metabolism, guaranteed. I've seen a lot of researchers sending me these messages. Milos used to say that thermic effect of feeding, you know, it's a major issue, and this study shows and proves it's nothing like that. You know, bullshit. Every time you eat, you know, you increase your metabolism, and then depending on you know, content, fibers, carbs, protein has a higher TEF. So if you choose your meals and you time it, you'll see in the shortest possible time, you're going to make the most dramatic transformation, especially in fat loss. If you do the ketogenic type of diet with high fibrous carbs, and you're eating right now, whatever you're eating, don't change the caloric content, just split your meals in half, eat every hour and a half, and you're going to see what's going to happen. Your metabolism is going to go through the roof, and you're going to burn body fat like crazy. And I had to do this many times with the people that are behind the schedule. You know, like they're competing within 4, 6, 8 weeks, and they're way behind. So what do you do? You know, so these are kind of things that you have to implement.
Cool. So how did you first get into coaching? You've been known as a coach for longer now than you were as a competitor, time-wise. How did you first get into it?
Well, really, I mean, once they start calling me a mind, you know, because look, I would never force my opinion on somebody unless they ask me. But I was very vocal every time if I disagree with something. So many times, you know, we were at conferences or seminars, and you know, I would just express my opinion. One in particular, I'm going to tell you this. There was Weider athletes meeting in Salt Lake City, and back then there was from Chad Nichols to all the competitors, Sean, Kim Chajewski, all the signees, and Jeff Feliciano, Dr. Wright. I mean, there's many other things. And like one question was popped about creatine. Should you use creatine for the contest or not? That was 97. Sorry, 97. Yep. Creatine, no, it's going to make you hold water. Da, 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 da. So like, okay, now those are experts telling us, you know, don't use creatine for a competition.
Yeah.
I said, like, excuse me, I rightfully disagree. What is creatine monohydrate going to do? It's going to, you know, get you that phosphate, right? That phosphate is going to be bound to ADP once ATP is used up. So it's going to, you know, create another ATP, which is what? Cellular energy inside this intracellular. Yep. So if you're going to hold the water, you're going to hold it exactly where you want it to have. So I actually published about a month ago my carb loading for Untitled Champions. And you can see I was using 50 grams of creatine each day.
Wow.
Monday, Tuesday, 50 grams for Canada, which I won. 50 grams a day, Monday to Friday. And for Untitled Champions, actually, I did as far as 80.
Wow.
You know, just to make the point, yes. Yeah, I mean, really, you volumize the cell. Isn't that exactly what you want? Yeah. So, you know, these are things. So you say, like when you say, how did I go into the coaching? I was, you know, quite persistent with my conditioning. And I did train some amateur bodybuilders there with my friends, so I coached them. So a couple of other guys, you know, saw that. And first really guy that I coached and I showed him, you know, what to do was the Nasser Al-Sambari, right? And if you look at Nasser 94, Olympia, looking like a mortal, you know, like really he was, I don't know his weight, but, you know, he was not at the level, nearly, at the level of 95 Houston and Untitled Champions that he won, or, you know, later, you know, Chad took him over, and I mean, he was really absolutely spectacular, I mean, monstrous. Yeah. So there was a few guys that approached me, and I was coaching them. I mean, I coached Nasser for Houston and other champions where I competed. I helped him beat me. So
what a nice guy you
really,
are.
I was always like this. I mean, really, if we are competitors, true competitors, let's all of us have same information, same tools, and let the best man win. I mean, obviously, he was genetically, type of guy that can pack muscle mass like crazy, and he did. So he rightfully beat me. But even you see, when I was training 5 people for Olympia, they train together, they compete against each other, and I would push everyone equally, and I would tell them, Hida, I want you to beat Silvia, and Silvia, I want you to beat Hida, and you kill each other in the training, and then let the best man win. I mean, that's supposed to be that way, camaraderie. I mean, once you're on the stage, judges decide, not you, but you can do whatever you can to bring yourself in the best possible condition on the day of the contest. And I was trying to achieve this with everyone. So yeah, my coaching was like this, and there was a bunch of guys. I mean, Gustavo Badel was a guy I liked from the very beginning, and I offered to help him, but interestingly, he didn't want to hire me until I retired. And then the second I retired, 2003, I competed in all the shows with him, and when I announced my retirement, that day he came to me, can you coach me? I said, sure. And then you see what happened in 2004. And I asked him, why wouldn't you, do it earlier, but you were competing, and like, yes, what? That's another funny story. Many times people tell me that they like to hear it. I said it in a different interview, but not for MD, right? Nasser is Yugoslavian. Right. And actually, he beat me back in, 1985. He was heavyweight, I was light heavyweight. So he beat me back then. Then we turned professional. He competed before me, I believe, 1990. 91, I started competing, and I was beating him in all these shows once we were competing against each other. Until 93, I was at FIBA, and he asked me if I can explain him everything. I sit him down for 2 hours. I explain every little concept that I was doing in front of his wife, Bisera, Birgit. Yeah. And then 94, when they came to visit me after the Olympia in my house, and we talked, and I showed him my journals, and I can see them talking something in German, and they said, what? So Nasser said, no, you're bullshitting me. You're not eating 500 grams of protein, no way, and you're not using insulin because insulin just made me fat and all that stuff. I said, Nasser, isn't this, when I look at the BISRA, isn't this exactly what I told you in 2003? So she says, yes, but, so BISRA said, well, he thought that you're going to trick him, so he did exactly everything the opposite. I mean, and a lot of people are like that, right? Yeah. So if you are playing those kind of games, you're going to get to nowhere. What I do with all my clients, if I tell you to do something, I explain why I want you to do it. I'm not going to tell you use insulin, don't ask me questions. You're going to use insulin for what purpose? Okay, to use the power of insulin to transport all the nutrients into the cells. How can you ensure that those nutrients are going to the right cells if you use it at the right time and you use the right nutrients? If you don't have anything lingering around that could be potentially dangerous, there is no way in hell you're going to have a negative side effects. And these are the things that, people that don't know specifically how to do it, they mess it up. That's why they get bloated guts and soft, and they're never conditioned. But if you do it correctly, it ain't going to happen.
Okay. So I want to, just so I don't forget at the very end, I know you are available for coaching. So how do people reach you? I want to make sure people can reach you, because they're going to want to contact you for coaching. I don't know if you take any more clients.
Today with the social media, it's very easy. I have Instagram, Milos Sarcev, and Facebook, also Milos Sarcev official. But I have thank you for giving me this opportunity to advertise my services. It's milos.sarcv@icloud.com. That's my email. I learned hard way not to give my mobile number. No, I did it once. But do you still have? I did it. My first article in Ironman magazine, back in '91. I thought it's a good idea. Jesus, what experience! Yeah.
Do you still have a website, milossarcev.com?
Yes, I have. It's inactive. Unfortunately, I had thousands and thousands of those incredible photos, from all the athletes. all the competitions, and somehow it's just disappeared. I don't know if any expert can revive it. That would be great. But yeah, it's still my website, but really the best way to reach me is through Instagram or Facebook.
Okay.
Or personal email.
So the last thing I want to ask you, we were all just at the Olympia a few days
What
ago.
do you mean? We just started.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I want to know what you thought of the decision. Did you think Rami should have beat Phil?
No. I mean, I'm going to tell you openly. I'm a big fan of Rami. For like the last 2-3 years, I was constantly saying that Rami should, win. He has all the potential in the world. If you look at him structurally, right, wide shoulders, monstrous guy. So he beats Phil in the department of size, width, X-frame, V-taper, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Possibly muscularity, okay. Flat abdomen, deep abdominals, right? But overall, when you put everything in consideration, as you should, perfect balance, symmetry, aesthetics, shape, quality, density, striations, separations. I mean, for me, instantly, Phil, when he came in the prejudging, he was not even close. I mean, he dominated. Yes, structurally, he is narrow. He was letting his stomach go many times, and I had actually a discussion directly with Phil, and he was bummed that I was telling him the truth. Because seriously, I mean, let's face it. You are a few minutes on that stage. If you are the champion or just professional competing at that level, there's no such a thing of relaxing and letting your stomach go. This is something that you have to have a control over it. Even if you have a little bit of a bloated gut, you have to control it. You have to have the breathing technique, glue your stomach to the spine, so to speak, and have abs at all times. I mean, I could hold a whole conversation with the guy next to me in the lineup and have my abs super deep. This is a kind of technique, and it's practicing and training. So to answer the question, yes, I thought that after prejudging, more deserving of a runner-up position was William Bonac. He was spectacularly conditioned. He has all the muscle mass. Structurally, I think that he needed more V-taper, to look more aesthetic and so on. But after prejudging, I had a William second. You see, Dexter is my sentimental favorite, and if he showed up in prejudging the way he looked at finals, I don't know. I would need to see him right next to him, but I prefer Dexter's physique over everyone.
Yeah.
That's and as you know, I'm sorry?
It's a hell of a physique. Everyone has to admit.
It's unbelievable physique. I mean, Dexter is one of the kind. Sean Roden, I mean, if you look at his structure, super teeny tiny waist, crazy separation on the phenomenal quads, the round shoulders, round chest, good arms. I mean, it just, again, I talked to Chris. He saw him ripped in the morning. A few hours later, he wasn't. And then, again, a few hours later, he was back to his condition. And it's one of those things, it's not exact science. Body responds differently somehow. And then sometimes coaches are being criticized. Something just happens in the meantime. But Sean Roden is spectacular. Nathan Disher was, great.
Yeah.
I was also cheering for Brendan Curry. He has that phenomenal shape. I mean, really, he has everything. If he really comes sliced and diced, he can be a potential candidate, for a title. Or last but not least, Cedric McMillan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all know he has all the size in the world, all the shape, all the aesthetics and quality. If he did put it together, he could have, fight for the title. You see, even back in the 90s, people were just saying, okay, whoever wins second, third, they are potential Olympia winners. Ronnie Coleman was 9th out of 13 guys at 97 Olympia.
Yeah.
Not because he was not worthy, but those guys are just a little bit better. But 98, he won. Okay, so there's easily 15 guys in a lineup that Lionel Burke. I mean, I'm a huge Lionel can be Miss Olympia easily. Yeah, they don't consider him. Rolly Winkler, if he shows up in a condition like he was the first time he won a pro show, slice and dice, striations upon striations, with this much muscle mass, it could happen. Now, I disagree with some of the guys that say, once you have that incredible muscle mass of 280, 90, 300 pounds, you cannot have that kind of quality. I disagree. You can. If you train your muscle, specifically, if you go for that kind of, especially Rolly, he had that crazy striations all over the place. He can match that again with 50 pounds extra. I guarantee you. He squeezes the triceps and the striations all over the place, right?
Right.
And triceps is overblown. I mean, it's probably the biggest triceps in the history of bodybuilding. Okay, so why you are telling me that chest or shoulders or lats cannot be just as striated regardless of how big they are? Let's mention Dorian. Dorian, with the biggest lats, thickest lats in the sport, he, brings the elbows down, and you can see every fiber from here to India. So yeah, I do think that really judges did. I would place top 6 in exact order.
Okay.
First time that I absolutely agree with the judges. I don't know what is your opinion. Yeah, and
we all have our own opinions.
yeah,
I don't think the judges did a bad job. I think it was pretty spot on, honestly.
One thing that I did not notice, and I'm going to be vocal about this, I heard this from others, like in 212, they did not compare second and third guy.
Ahmad Ashkenani and Jose. Yeah.
This is mind-boggling to me. Like, how could you not compare the guys? I mean, I had that argument back in 2006. We actually accomplished to get from Jim Mannion official letter that starting 2007, top 10 competitors are going to be compared mutually, crisscrossed.
Yeah.
And then first contest 2007 Ironman, none of that happened. And then I complained, and actually I was scrutinized. Like they told me to shut up and behave. But really, I wasn't fighting for my guys, for myself, or anything. I just think if you're really considering this as a sport and not as entertainment, you have to give challengers a chance to challenge the guys, champions.
Right.
I don't have a business. I don't have a mind problem being beaten by everyone. I can be dead last. If I was compared to everyone ahead of me, I can peacefully accept my position. But if I'm not even compared to the guys that I know, I have tools to beat. That leaves that sour note with you, and it really affects you. Many people actually stop competing because of it. Because they say I didn't get a fair chance, so I'm just going to walk away. I know personally many.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, I have so many questions. I could talk to you literally for hours. So I would love the chance to do this again, maybe in a couple months if you have time, because I love talking to people that have strong opinions, and they're educated and have the experience to back them up like you do. So please let's do this again sometime.
Yes, you can say we didn't prepare this. I had no idea what you're going to ask me, but as you can see, I can probably talk you under the table. I can talk forever.
And I think people can listen to you all day too. So that's why it all works out. So let's consider this part 1. Part 2 to be continued at a future date, if we could.
I'm available at all times. Okay.
All right, I appreciate it very much. So thank you so much for taking the time, Milos. Love hearing you talk. Love hearing your opinions. These stories of yours, everything. It's gold. I love it. So let's do this again sometime. But I appreciate you taking the time today. And
we will. I mean, it's good for me to be back here in the U.S. I mean, you guys could reach me when I was in Europe too, but now I'm in the U.S., so you have no excuse. I'm here available anytime.
Cool. All right. So for the Ronline Report, this has been me with Milos the Mind Sarcev.
Thank you.